It shows you how Garvey was so ahead of his time, right? Because he wanted ships back in those days to
Yeah.
transport and import food. And even though he didn't live long enough, and you remember the story of Garvey, dear brother, when Garvey bought the Black Star Line, it was the American government who sent in FBI agents, and his main aide, who was his Minister of Finance, was an FBI agent.
Yeah.
And they poured sugar into the engines of Garvey's fleet,
Mm-hmm.
destroyed the engines so that he
Sabotaging.
sabotage the operation. So
And
it is a massive uphill struggle.
and
And
funny enough, you mentioned Marcus Garvey, because the word market garden in London came from Marcus Garvey's wife. And I've only just learned this maybe a year or two ago.
you see,
That the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, his wife started the first market garden in and around London. And if my memory serves me right, in Fulham. Welcome, brother.
and warm welcome to you too, and to all of our in the audience. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's indeed a perpetual pleasure to be on this platform on a weekly basis. Not just because I'm hosting it, but I get tremendous joy and benefit. And if I wasn't extracting tremendous joy, benefit, and advancement and learning, I wouldn't be hosting it. Like I wouldn't do it. My time is so valuable, as is yours. So I don't engage in things that I don't enjoy and that I don't learn from and that I don't benefit from. If it doesn't serve me and advance me, then I find something else to do. However, the plethora of guests that we um, encounter on the spiritual injection and who we host weekly, they are some of the most intriguing people on planet Earth, and their perspective is very unique. Some you know, some you may not know. And when it comes to something that's very dear to my heart, which is what we're discussing today, farming, it gives me pleasure to be in the same room as our special guest, because today we're going to discuss something that all of us on this platform need to know something about. When I was a young boy, my mother used to grow tomatoes in the window. She would put the plant pot in the window until these tomatoes, or tomatoes, as some of you say, engulfed the whole window pane. And similarly, we used to grow in the back garden, or in Brixton, in the backyard. We used to plant, my mother used to plant and grow callaloo. Some of you from Jamaica, you call it ilaloo, but it was callaloo, okay? Um, so with the callaloo, my mother used to grow that in the backyard. But you know, some of us are a certain way. We can think that it's more advanced or advantageous to go to the supermarket to buy these things. Why grow it? You know. But now, as an older man, I realized and really appreciate the fact that if ever we are going to say we are free and we're independent as people, or even as an individual, you must know something about the earth. Because if ever you open the Bible, the first trade that was taught to Adam was farming, the first trade. And no matter how wealthy you become in this short life that we're given, one thing you will always need is food. So the doctor needs food, right?
Mhm.
The lawyer needs food, right? The stockbroker needs food, right? The judge needs food, right? The teeth need food too. You know, so everybody on planet Earth needs food. But the farm or farms are not just designed, and we're going to discuss it today, for food purposes, there are many purposes that we can utilize and use a farm for. So today we're going to discuss the various means and methods and ways in which we can monetize farms. And I'm hopeful that I can invite as many of you as possible to really take today's discussion to heart with a view, in mind that at some point you and your family must be the owner of land somewhere that can produce food. Yeah. So, Brother Rickey, you here? I see you. You seem to have disappeared, Sylvina. So, what we're going to do? Oh, he's here. So I'm gonna present to you our special guest, who's one of our beloved farmers here in the UK, based in the UK, and he has a great operation. And originally from out of the Caribbean, and now he's in cold England, working the land in cold England to show us that not only can we successfully work land in beautifully, sunny, rich countries like the Caribbean and Africa, but even in cold England, we can cultivate some food and sustain ourselves right here. So, spiritual injection, please take your devices off mute and give our wonderful guest, Brother Rickey, a rapturous round of applause and welcome to our platform. Warm welcome, Brother Rickey. The floor is yours.
Welcome, Brother Rickey. Welcome.
Brother Rickey.
Greetings.
Greetings. Well, first and foremost, I would like to say greetings in the name of the Most High, Jah, as we say in Jamaica, Jah Rastafari. But to each and every one, to whomsoever you might perceive him to be, or she to be. So blessed love to each and every one.
Blessed love.
Blessed love.
Aye.
So, Brother Rickey, please speak to us about your operation and what you've got going here in the United Kingdom and how you started.
Well, I started from a very tender age. My first teacher or trainer, so to speak, was my grandfather, who was, I considered, one of the original market gardeners. Before these terms that I come to know as market garden and organic market gardens and all of that, fancy names. My grandfather back in the days, whenever there was a young children on the way, or a boy or a girl on the way, that is to be a new member of the family, he would always plant a fruit tree in our name. And on a Christmas day, when we used to go and look for him once out of every year, because he was also very busy. So we always look forward to going and seeing him on a Christmas day. And he will get us to the bigger ones and pick the fruits from the fruit trees in and around the garden, the vineyard, as we call it. And we gather up together in the middle of the yard and we'll exchange fruits. Now that seed has always been planted in my mind, has always stayed with me from ever since. And moved through growing up, becoming a teenager, was always fascinated by farming, but for some reason, maybe through distraction and other reasons, has never really gotten around to it fully. And then come across the Rastafarian community at that time, who was the only set of people who was saying, vital food, and you must grow what you eat, and the herbs should be the healing of the nation. Excuse me. And lots of other things that we now come to know as real truth. Helped me and guide me. We started a little foundation in Jamaica by the name of KUSH, called Foundation, which we abbreviated mean Cultural Upliftment Through Self-Help. And we started acquiring land back in the early 80s to start developing crops so we can learn how to feed ourselves. Unfortunately, that did not work out in the way that we intended. And a lot of us dispersed and went overseas, some to America, some into Africa, and some into UK, myself into UK. And started doing different things. But then started getting visions of farming and the old school way of living, and starting being a bit more conscious about what I what you're supposed to be eating and what you're supposed to be doing and how your body start feeling, how you can cope in the UK by eating certain things. Started questioning certain things. Came across a man by the name of Dr. Sabi, who started talking about, asking questions about where your food come from, what are you eating in your body, you are what you eat. Started teaching us about the alkaline table and the acid table and what it does to the body. Started triggering back off what my grandfather was trying to see that my grandfather planted in my mind. And from that led to me started researching and finding out more about the food that I eat and started paying attention to when I eat certain food, how I feel, and when I get sick, how long I take to heal back, even from the common cold. And that started a journey where here I am today.
And where are you today?
So we started out, once we started out learning about these things, we started a little bit of experience over there in Fulham, where we started growing lettuce on pallets on a fence line. And that started my first attention to people started getting interested in the different tastes and wanted to said I should push it further. Started looking for land and ended up meeting a Sikh person who had some greenhouses. Started growing peppers inside the greenhouses, and we successfully started growing peppers and lots of different types of herbs, which we were selling in little small markets at the time. Was not called market garden or anything like that. And one thing led to another. We started testing different types of crops and ended up growing a lot of Scotch bonnet pepper. However, because at that time I was not in any formal agreement or written agreement, so to speak, with the landlord who gave me permission to use his greenhouses, when he came and saw what we were doing, he said he wanted his property back. So I had to end up culling over 1,000 Scotch bonnet pepper tree. But before that happened, he actually set the police on us, telling the police that we were growing cannabis. And we had a big, massive police raid with police running in, telling us not to move. And when they realized what we were growing, the Metropolitan Police turned around and gave us 13 allotment space for growing for free for 2 years to progress what we were growing, because they were so amazed by what we were trying to do and what we were doing. And we kind of outgrew that, started looking for more land and ended up 1 acre, then 2 acres, then ended up with 5 acres. Developed to the way where we started learning about regenerating farming. And on my journey started trying out different means and methods of farming and finding that the old school way of farming has to end, because it was depleting the water system. We were losing topsoil. The mineral content of our food intake is really, really low. People were getting sicker, easier. The environment, even the air that we're breathing, because of all of these things that amount up to bad way of farming abilities. I started looking different ways of how I can grow crops, and looked into regenerative farming, permaculture, natural farming. And it all took me back to what the Rastaman was saying from a very early age, that ital is vital, and the herb is the earth for the eating of the nation. And all of these things that was planted as seeds inside my head from a very young age started coming back to me, and I started infusing it and started learning about different techniques of farming and how we could use those different techniques of farming to infuse it to come up with something better than what we have today. Because with all of the great minds in the world, with all of the great technology that we have in the world, with all of the great machinery that we have in the world, how can we get it so wrong? And how have we gotten it so wrong that so many people are getting sick, when we should be in a time now, or an age now, where sickness shouldn't be so prevalent? Malnourished people, hunger and starvation should not be. And I found out that we were being taught a lie, and also we have been fed a lie, and we also digested a lie. And that even urged me even more to try and find out better ways of farming. And so we delved into regenerative farming, learned about a man by the name of PJ Yeoman, who deal with keyline farming over in Australia by storing water in the soil. And we started infusing different techniques and trying different ways of creating biodiversity in the soil, building the soil. And we found a key. We found that if we step back and let nature guide us, as they do in the forest, and we utilize the life in the soil and keep the soil alive, we can achieve great things in very quick times. And so we started on a journey to develop regenerative farming in our own style. There's many different ways that people are practicing regenerative farming all over the world, but what we have achieved, where we have come to in the UK, is different in many, many ways. And we're still building, we're still developing. And yes, someone is saying something?
No, we just got some interference from somebody who didn't mute their device. Please proceed, brother.
Yes, so we're still developing, we're still trying new things, but we have reached a stage now where we are starting to prove what we were testing in, and we're starting to see great results. We have learned that we can develop soil and build up soil diversity and build up the life in the soil very fast by just using very natural and very simple practices that nature has provided us with for thousands and thousands of years. We have also found that conventional way of growing monoculture crop is not the way forward. And if we don't change that very soon, we won't have a planet to live on, so to speak. And we should seriously take this up as individual, because we should also start thinking about local growing for local produce, for local mineralization of each and every one when it comes to one's health. So we started looking for more land, and in that time of we looking for more land, we ended up with 5 acres. Again, we wanted a long-term lease, but as a Black person, as a person who doesn't come from the UK and is not familiar with all of the pros and the cons of leasing land, and you don't have the money to pay for proper solicitors and people who deal with land rights to make sure that you're on the right page. You're just enthusiastic about what you want to learn and what you want to get across to your people and people in general. You took a lot of things for granted and dive in. Ended up losing a lot of money, because the same thing happened to us again, where we developed the land. The landlord waited until we developed the land and said he wanted his land back. And because we were on a one year lease, year in, year out, we had no choice but to lose a lot of stuff on the property because we had nowhere to put it. Fast forward that 1 year later, without retaliating, because we are Jamaicans, you know, we're serious people when it comes to people violating our rights and all these things.
Know that.
a lot of my friends was expecting serious retaliation and war for broke out and all kind of things, and people run away and all these things. But again, because of the frequency that I was trying to develop things, and it took me to a different platform on a different level. Wherein as my ancestors teach me that go on today and come tomorrow. So we decided to take the latter of not retaliating in the manner in which they expect our stereotype on Jamaican people. And we said we're gonna make the spiritual guide. And which it did. And it led us to Wood Oaks Farm, where we, because of a man by the name of Steve Wigby, which was a white farmer who knew me from across the road where I was farming initially. Let me met a man by the name of Harry, who introduced me to Wood Oaks Farm and got me 5 acres over Wood Oaks Farm. And we started delving into regenerative farming in the manner in which we should. We've been there now for this season becoming the 3rd season. It's been an uphill task because, as I said, it's myself, and at any given time was always been either 1 or 2 of us or 3 of us. But it's been an uphill task, but the results that we have been proving and we have been achieving has been amazing. And we've reached a stage now where we need to show what we can do so people can come down and see for themselves. But we also need help. We also need financial input. We also need more land. We also need people with more agricultural skills, biologists, people who grow mushrooms, scientists who can do soil research, because we need to document all of these things. And we don't profess to know, like, act as if we know everything. We want to bring a proper farm family together so we can find the right solution to grow food for all of us.
So tell me, Ricky, what are you actually producing at the moment?
Well, at the moment it's winter time now, so as you don't know, we're in England. It's not like in the Caribbean where there's always something in the field. Some people we are at the moment just producing microgreens and sprouts. We have acquired planning permission to put up tunnels so we can grow things like callaloo sprouts and lettuce and winter crops, winter vegetables in and out of a tunnel. But as you say, we're still in the developing stage. We are lacking in manpower, so we just tend to focus on putting in the infrastructure, setting up a place for major crop production, and see where we can get out at the end of that. Because as I said, we are getting no help from no one. Everything has to be done off the back of ours and out of our pocket. And as you know, as Black people, we never have money.
Right. Until somebody did. So,
until somebody did, and then say it's one bag of foolishness.
So tell me, brother, in regards to your vision for the farm, because you mentioned you would like to expand, and tell me, during like a 12-month cycle, you discuss what you're producing now, but what do you also produce during the warmer times of the year? What's your full cycle of produce generally?
Generally, we started off with a monocrop project, so to speak, where we were concentrated on this callaloo for the main market. But if we wanted it to make it work here, as we wanted to get into more diversity, we are now thinking we move towards more crop development, things like asparagus, lettuce, parsley, amaranth, affectionately known as callaloo, pumpkins, 2 different types, possibly 3 different types, watermelon, squash, things like sweet peas, kale. We also setting up a fruit forest. So we have things like figs, plums, berries, raspberries, blueberries, goji berries, strawberries, grapes, seeded, various different types. And we want to increase it to things like hazelnuts, walnuts. We want to put in trees, timbers for firewood, for fencing, bamboos, for making biochar, charcoals. So we can create a closed loop system where the only thing that leaves the farm is the food that you're supposed to eat, and everything is used back on the farm for creating the next cycle.
Perfect. Because I was going to discuss that with you, the multifaceted nature of a farm, that it's not just food, but it's also, as you mentioned, the producing or the production of wood, timber, and to those who love their Christmas trees, them can plant too. So, and also flowers and other form of trees or plants, right? And I've found, Ricky, that if you go to the average plant shop, general plants very expensive.
Oh yeah.
So is this something you're also planning on engaging in to expand your operations?
Oh yeah, definitely. But as you said, we can't compete with the big guys because with the big guys, they set up their greenhouses. Everything is grown under lights with the proper heating system, proper watering system, hydroponic system, and all of that. But we're taking a different route where we're saying that okay, they have bombarded the whole planet with acid plants, as we say, acid food, where most of the food that you get into the supermarkets or the stores, they're basically being built from one ingredient, or two or three ingredients, which is cornstarch, flour, rice, and everything is based around that. Oats, wheat, and barley. And all of the other stuff, then whether it's bread, whether it's cereal, whether it's pasta, whether it's chips, crisp, it's all based around the same food. So you're just getting the same, what they call proteins and vitamins from the same food all the time. Where we tend to take it a little bit deeper than that, and we're saying the body needs minerals. In order to create that minerals, you have to make sure so you have a healthy soil, a live soil. And that is one of the things that we noticed, that with conventional farming, growing in that, moving in the direction that they're moving, they dig up the field in this beginning of the season, kill off all the minerals and all of the life in the soil, and you will get good crop for the first season because all of that organic nutrients that is breaking down in the soil will give you a good crop. But every year after that, you have to keep on adding synthetic nutrients. You have to add synthetic fertilizer, pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, and that just start depleting the soil, start messing up the water table, and pretty soon, you know, we are in a head-on collision to nowhere that is good. So
very interesting.
So we decided that okay, if that's the direction that monocrop culture is teaching us, we want to create a biodiversity, and by planting in the manner in which we deal with companion planting, which is another discipline that we've taken from some farmers who does that, and that will help with dealing with not using pesticides. We've planted crops that is there for self-fertilization and for building the organic matter in the soil. We use things like what most people call weed. We use as our fertilization and remineralization system, so we don't have to practice crop rotation that has been taught to us in school and in horticulture. And we're developing a lot of other different skills just by letting nature be our guide. And we have a saying that we use the worms as our tractor, so we don't have to dig the soil to plant what we needed and to get it in the manner in which we want.
Tell me, from your experience, Rickey, you see a lot of problems with many of our young people and the irresponsible nature in which many of us as adults now are starting to stray away from cultural dietary laws that we were reared to respect. And I've never seen so many of our people eat so much fast food as I'm seeing today without questioning it. You know, I'm seeing elders going into kebab shops who are in their 60s and 70s at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. How can we pull the next generation, brother, back towards a healthy respect for the land and a healthy respect for nutritious foods, as we seem to be just going in the opposite direction? How can we retrieve the next generation who are coming up now?
Well, the first thing you have to start with, you know, as Michael Jackson said, you know, is the man in the mirror, you know. Each one have to start with himself. And as you know, every idea that you look around, as far as the eye can see, that has been developed on the planet, started in the mind of one individual. And then it creates that domino effect eventually. So we have to start with the man in the mirror, and by we starting with ourselves, by questioning ourselves, then we can start look outwards. And then we can start creating communities and doing things collective. Now, with the vicious cycle that has been created in today's society, you're looking at corporate companies, pharmaceutical companies owning seed rights. You're looking at the Ministry of Defense owning agricultural land. And you're looking at the pesticides companies are the pharmaceutical companies which build the hospitals, which then sell you the food, and which are the same corporate companies which own the supermarkets. So it's a vicious cycle, and it's not an easy cycle to break. Also, we are learning now by doing different practices and infusing other different things, that nothing under the planet is created without frequency. And once you break the frequency of something, then you're traveling on a different platform. And that is what has happened to our food cycle. Because of the monocrop culture that requires synthetic fertilizer, synthetic nutrients to make the crop grow, depleting the soil. The frequency of the food that we eat gives us that mindset that we don't want to delve into things that will make our whole being better. So we are caught in a vicious cycle of just thinking about from hand to mouth and from day to day, rather than planning for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or for the next generation to come. It's a mindset that has been created so as in a dog eat dog society and a crab in a bag mentality, which has been forced upon us. And a lot of us have signed away our civil liberties and our civil rights for this to happen. Now, a lot of laws and clause has been sorted out behind back doors to pass laws to govern us. And one of the classic examples of this is what happened with COVID. A lot of people got drawn into things that they didn't know, myself included, because we were all learning together. And a lot of us have been fed the truth, myself included. A lot of us have been fed a lot of lies, myself included. So we're not trying to think that we are extra special. It's just that we're in a society now where we have to start with the individual child in the house. We came from a time where we had to eat whatever our parents provided for us. Now we, as parents, are asking the child what they want, like they're supposed to know better than us, and we are supposed to be responsible for them. And there is always so much option that if we don't provide for this, the schools will provide these things for them, and then they're caught in a cycle where everything that has been taught to us is taught to us with the signs and symbols that lead you towards sugar. Now, sugar and salt, not even salt, sodium, because they're mixing up salt, they're mixing up salt with sodium, which is a poison to the body. And we have become addictive to sugar and salt from a very tender age. So by the time the youths them of today, and even from my generation, reach, say, 30, 40, they're on a spiral, downward spiral, where it's not so easy for one to wake up and figure out and say, hang on a minute, I'm going to funerals that my friend just died from high blood pressure. But when after his funeral is finished, and when you come to fulfill his life, you're still eating the same food that sent him to his death. So in order for us to address what the younger generation is doing, we have to start being true parents again. We have to start realizing that no child is ever being grown just by one set of parents, but by the whole community. And in order for us to do that, we have to start living as a community, because now we have separated ourselves. Just like how the agricultural system has set up monocrop culture, where it's just one crop going for miles and miles, it's the same way we have set up ourselves, where it's just me, myself, and I, and our family. We don't have any time for the next 2 neighbors. A lot of us are living on streets for years and don't even know what our next door neighbor name is, whether they're black, white, pink, or Chinese. And these are some of the things that they use to separate us, why we can't bring it together in order to create the kind of food supply that we really need, which is local produce for local families. And exotic food for people who, from the exotic place, who do still need that type of minerals. So we should create a market for them also. Because if we're saying we want to walk down the road. We don't want to walk down the road because it's there for some people. We want to walk down the road because it's there for all of the people, as Burning Spears would say.
A burning spear, sir, brother.
Burning Spears say, you don't want to walk down the road because it's safe for some people. You want to walk down the road because it's safe for everyone. And in order for us to do that, we have to start building back the community that create that safety.
Right. Very good. So by way of poverty and wealth of mindset, brother, because you will find in affluent areas here in London that every weekend there will be a farmer's market. So why is there not such in our communities? Why do we prefer to go to the supermarket than to the farmer's market? And most of us, we grew up going to the market with our mothers on a Saturday morning, and obviously hated having to carry the little trolley where she didn't have, that was the walk of shame, right?
And now we're learning that was gold that the mother and father was teaching us. The real value of life,
Right.
So one of the reasons you asked why, carry on, sorry.
So by the time you were back home, it was a trolley full of goodies, right? Yeah. And mama would show us how to choose food, even down to fish. She would flip it on its left and flip it back and
push back the gill.
Yeah, she would sort through her food. She never just picked up what someone was giving her. So we seem to have lost that, dear brother. So again, I just want to really just drill down on this, because there was a clear interest. It's like going to the shop to buy an item of clothing. You try it on and you make sure it fits you, right? You just don't go and just pick it up and pay a fee. You don't, because if you was to do that, you would find that you'd have to return it. So why is it that we're so concerned on items of clothing and footwear and whatnot fitting us perfectly, but we're not measuring the food that we eat to ensure that it fits with our biochemical composition?
The truth of the matter is a lot of us don't know. Right. A lot of us don't take the time to know. And as I said, it's been forced upon us. Right. And also because of what we call poverty. So the food that is not good for us, they found a way to make it cheaper. And the food that we used to be used to is now called superfood.
Right.
So things like soursop, mangoes that we used to use and stone dog and play tag and war with and all kind of different games with. We are now seeing these foods on the shelf priced out of our food range when we are in a different country, and they dubbed it as superfood. Right. So a lot of people get put off for that reason. The second reason is we're not in an environment where even if we don't have any money in our pocket and we don't have no shoes on our foot, we could go to the next door neighbor and pick two mango over and fence it if we want and bust a one shot off of we are. Right. We have to run and go seek refuge in our next door neighbor. So all of these are the things that we used to take for granted. We are now seeing that these are the things that other people are using to create big profit.
Right.
And we don't have access to it no more. And it's even getting worse than that now, whereas to even bring it to where we are, the freight companies and the shipping companies has making it even harder for us to bring it in as individual. And if you haven't got big money to do these things, then you're doing an uphill struggle all the way.
It shows you how Garvey was so ahead of his time, right? Because he wanted ships back in those days to transport and import food. And even though he didn't live long enough, and you remember the story of Garvey, dear brother, when Garvey bought the Black Star Line, it was the American government who sent in FBI agents, and his main aide, who was his Minister of Finance, was an FBI agent.
Yeah.
And they poured sugar into the engines of Garvey's fleet, destroyed the engines so that he sabotaged the operation. So it is a massive uphill struggle.
And funny enough, you mentioned Marcus Garvey, because the word market garden in London came from Marcus Garvey's wife. And I've only just learned this maybe a year or two ago.
You see?
That the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, his wife, started the first market garden in and around London. And my memory served me right, in Fulham.
In this time, we had no time for stressing. In this time, we should all be investing. Getting knowledge should never be rejected. Every week, did you get the message? Get your ticket today, it don't take a second. Every Thursday, get 7. It's time to make this earth into heaven. So need to worry, there's a blessing. No need for second guessing, it's 'cause spiritual injection. It's a spiritual.
Do you enjoy our content? Well, make sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you won't miss an episode.